wherever you are in the world, allowing the sound of those bells to remind you of everything that you already know and everything especially if you have children in your lap at the moment. And giving yourself over to resting in the present moment in the full flowering of your dignity as a human being. Whether you're alone, whether you're together, giving yourself over to the meditation practice, which really involves making room for what is appearing in experience to be met and recognized and embraced in awareness without having to do anything with it or to it. And this is a radical act of wisdom, of sanity, of love, as we've been talking about. And it often looks like nothing. It looks like silence. But as we've been emphasizing, non-doing is not the same as nothing. This non-doing turns out to be so pivotal that it could be said to be just about everything. And while we don't want to engage in talking too much about and therefore much ado about nothing, we also don't want to get caught up in much ado about non-doing and mindfulness. Better to live it rather than to talk it. And I say that realizing that I'm a prime offender in that regard. So inviting the silence that's never not here, the wakefulness that's never not here to emerge as the cloudiness of the mind that's always trying to get someplace else just sort of dissolves away in our intention to be fully present or to fall awake, alone and together, because we are intensely together, even if we find ourselves alone in our own home or room or whatever. And now we actually have each other in this community in a way that hard to understand, but easy to feel and remarkable. And when we're silent together, even more remarkable, because then we're not emphasizing ideas and opinions and difference and the commonality of our humanity and our hearts is right here. So can we dwell in this right here-ness? With no agenda other than to take up residency in the space of our own heart, the space of our own awareness, mountain-like, lake-like, whatever images or supporting frameworks you want to recruit to as scaffolding to support your meditation practice. But ultimately, it's beyond name and form and beyond time and space. So here we are, exactly where the bells, the sound of the bells have brought us to. Just this, the soundscape of now, the mindscape of now, the heartscape of this very moment, the bodyscape of this very moment. the breathscape as well. And for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, this, what I'm calling breathscape, or the feeling of the breath moving in and out of your body, can be a real anchor for your attention if you're unsure about how to meditate, so to speak, which is not so much a doing, as I'm saying, but a being. But you can just play with riding on the waves or surfing on the waves of your own breath sensations in the body, and noticing how distractible the mind is, and then coming back to the breath every time it takes off in one direction or another. So that's the invitation. That's the dance of life expressing itself in us in the myriad of ways that it does, moment by moment by moment, as we sit here embracing the full play of it all in the open-hearted, boundless spaciousness of awareness itself. Not something you get because you already have it, but something that you make room for and then enter and explore and reside in. Something that's not a thing. Wakefulness itself, embodied. Right here, right now. And if you have a child on your lap, so much the better. Two bodies breathing. Two bodies falling awake. Or three or four or however many people are in your room or this room, which is thousands. So you're not just in your home, you're at home. In this timeless present moment we call now, which is really beyond place and beyond time. be aware of any ways that you might be kind of idealizing the practice or seeking to have some kind of special experience, even of relaxation or well-being. And seeing if you can just put the welcome mat out for whatever's here, even the unwanted stuff, maybe even especially the unwanted stuff. Why? Because it's here and is so it's an essential part of the curriculum. Is it possible to just really be at home for this moment or this in-breath and surrender all of our ideas and opinions and likes and dislikes and agendas just for this moment? You can still have all your attachments. And believe me, even if you didn't want them, they're not going to let go of you so easily. But for now, can you drop in such a way that you're free with this breath, even half a breath? No pushing away, no pursuing anything. Can you be at home in your own skin like this, outside of time, and just for now, without any striving, without any trying, just playing with that tiny shift in orientation or attitude or intention to explore, to let the meditation practice in this moment be an investigation, a laboratory investigation, and a big adventure into not knowing. And into saying yes to what is deepest and best in yourself and in your life, right in this moment. In spite of all the craziness and anguish and grief and loss. Maybe not even in spite of it, just embracing that as much as the beauty, but not losing touch with the beauty dimension that's here at the same time. And this is an element of our humanity that often carries the name equanimity. It's a balance of heart and mind, inner and outer. doesn't deny the pain and the grief and the seeing it all as weather patterns in the boundless spaciousness of the sky like awareness, or the space like awareness. But let's stay with sky because it has weather patterns. And you're the sky, not the storms and various unfoldings within the sky that we visited in the mountain meditation and the lake meditation some weeks ago. And again, the reminder, if you feel like, hey, when's he going to stop talking so we can get to the real meditation? All the talk is just pointing things out that you might want to tilt your head and take a look in that direction and feel how it is for yourself, not thinking. And the invitation is always the same. You can drop underneath my words at any moment to the silence that's never actually not present in you, in me, underneath all thinking, all words. Right here, right now. Just this moment, just this breath, just this boundless spaciousness of knowing and not knowing. Just this sitting here or lying here or whatever you're doing. Just this being human. Just this. And if your eyes have been closed up to this point, I would invite you to gently invite them to open. And if your eyes have been open, I'd invite you to gently let them close. And noticing whether that has any effect on your capacity to be in this moment with full awareness. And if it does, that's interesting. And maybe we can learn something from playing with that. And if it doesn't, that's interesting. Maybe we can learn something from playing with that. And as usual, or there's no usual, but as I will often do, I rang the bells at the beginning of this period of formal practice, and I'm not going to ring them as we move seamlessly from this period of formal guided meditation practice into our time for dialogue and questions, conversation, being together. Because, and you may be, tired of hearing me say this, but I'm just going to keep saying it. The real meditation practice is life itself. Every single moment of it, including the most inconvenient, the most alienating, the most challenging, the most maddening. And of course, often the maddening is really, I'd be fine if it weren't for all these other people. And I'd be fine if it weren't for everything that was going on in the world. And of course, there's some truth to that, but there are all these much bigger truths that often we ignore for decades at a time. And our being together is a phenomenal opportunity, and that's what mindfulness is all about, is to not miss the life that is ours to live, that only unfolds now, and we don't get to write the whole script about how things unfold in the world, or who's in charge, or why did this have to happen, or which are all very important questions to ask, but we need to, in some sense, remember that there's a hidden dimension that's actually, the more we inhabit it, not so hidden, that can help us actually navigate the ups and downs and craziness and danger of this time we're in a way that moves us towards greater and greater well-being, not just for ourselves, but for each other in the world, and minimize as much as possible the toxicity, the potential for harming, the dishonesty, the cruelty, the greed that doesn't just live in all those people out there, but lives equally, unfortunately, or never mind the judgment, but the recognition that it also lives in ourselves. And if we want the world to be different, as soon as we liberate ourselves from greed, hatred, and delusion, at least there's one nucleus of sanity and clarity on the planet for at least this moment that actually has profound repercussions and effects that really are multiplicative uh, when we are willing to occupy the full dimensionality of what it means to be you underneath the names, the forms, the chronology, the history, which is all incredibly important. But underneath the story, his story or my story or her story, what is here that's bigger than all that and really wants and needs, and the world needs to have express itself in the service of that well-being on every level, coming out of this period of pandemic that who knows what it means to come out of it. But can we use it to good stead, for good, for a greater good, and learn the lessons that we didn't ask for and they're in our face like nobody's business. So we're going to have a second hour, as you may know, but you may not, after this one ends, where we break up into small groups as we've been doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays after the first hour, and really exploring in conversation with each other in this global community, just the love that brings us here, the beauty of the practice when it's embodied in whatever ways we can manage to remember. I said a whole lot yesterday because it was Memorial Day, about mindfulness and memory and remembering. And when we have memorial, you know, we usually say, everybody says, oh, we'll take a moment of silence. And nobody needs a guided meditation to know how to be in a moment of silence, right? It's woven into our DNA. And it would be a travesty if all of a sudden somebody tried to orchestrate how you should be in the silence of remembering those who are no longer with us, those who we've lost, whether it's in war or whether it's this pandemic. But if the silence were to go on for 5 or 10 minutes, how much would it still be a moment of silence? Most people are not prepared to, like, hey, come on, let's get on with it. Let's get back to living. And what we're discovering here is that that silence is constitutive. It's like here all the time. And when we live that way, then ordinary life lights up in a way that is just more rich because we're not missing it, even the hard stuff. So we're going to move now into a period of what I call dialogue. And Soren will kind of give you a little bit of guidance on how we do it if you're here for the first time. If not, you'll know. And we've been here 9 weeks so far. I mean, we're in the second day of the 9th week if you're keeping score. And maybe you've been trying every single day for 9 weeks to get recognized. And again, I mean, we just apologize for the impossibility of the numbers. And at the same time, don't apologize at all because it's just the way it is. And you probably have far better answers to whatever your questions are than I would. But these are kind of just hopefully useful ways to explore what the hell we're really doing with this meditation practice and how to live life as if it really, really, really mattered.
So yes, if you have a question, you can click the participants tab and then a column on the right will open up. And at the bottom of that, there will be a place to raise your hand. And as Jon mentioned, sadly, we can't get to everybody's hand, but over the weeks and months this unfolds, hopefully everyone will get heard and seen. And I'm seeing Pearl and Thomas are kind of right front and center here. So I'll go ahead and bring you guys on. Sans kids at the moment. It looks like you're unmuted.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Soren, for picking us. And we actually have 2 questions. I have one and my husband has one. And I'm going to start, and I want to thank you both for making this possible for so many people to connect globally and to feel this interconnectedness. And Jon, I'm quite nervous right now because I could not imagine that I would really be talking to you. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful for all the work that you've done and that you've been doing. And thank you for being who you are and being what you are. And you are a real gift for this world. And I'm saying this because you're the most inspiring person in my profession, or you've been the most inspiring person in my profession for the last 2 decades. I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist, and I'm becoming an MBSR teacher and or an instructor. And there's no session with my patients where we don't put out the welcome mat for everything that is here to be seen, that is here to be felt, that is here to be thought, that is here to be recognized, for every sensation in the body.
Well, a deep bow to you for that.
And I've learned it from you. I've learned it from you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm very deeply touched that you're saying that, Perry. Very deeply touched. And I'm just taking it in. But I also want to say that you need to save a little bit of the gratitude for yourself and those deep aspects of yourself that are resonating with whatever it is that you feel is coming to you from me, because that's really the love affair. And I don't want to use the word work in association with it. It's just wisdom being infectious, you know, and it can't be infectious unless the ground is fertile, you know, the soil is really fertile. And so that's what any teacher or a therapist or, you know, friend or lover or colleague, you know, is like, for me to be me and you need to be you. And then we can have a kind of concordance that actually is illuminating and healing. And I think even more than that, transformative. And then if that becomes your work, your vocation, but even more like your, you know, far beyond work, but the love or passion, then the benefit to the world multiplies just like the virus. In other words, it goes exponential. This would be the powerful exponential piece of love moving in the world, but not just love in some kind of romantic way, but wisdom and compassion. So thank you. I want to just express my gratitude back to you. Where are you calling from, by the way? Are you in?
We're in Germany, in Stuttgart.
Okay.
It's in the southwest of
I know
Germany.
where it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my question is about the body scan meditation. I like the body scan meditation very, very much. And I've been doing it for a few years. And it has become a real lunch break ritual for me.
Oh.
So for me, lunch break is eating and then putting out the mats, lying down and practicing the body scan meditation with your instruction, because I like your instruction very much. For me, your instruction it's beyond words. It's full of love, loving kindness, compassion, and it's full of honoring life as it is unfolding moment by moment. And it also has been very healing for me practicing the body scan meditation, very transforming and connecting.
Mm.
And there's a part of the body scan meditation at the end. And this is my question. It's about the blowhole of the whale. I like this part so much and I don't want to miss it. And I do integrate it in my instruction of the body scan. But I know that there are instructions of the body scan meditation without the blowhole of the whale. So this is my question to you. I would love to hear your story behind the blowhole of the whale. And if you could like to, or yeah, could share with us your experiences with guiding it with this part of the blowhole of the whale in your courses. And I would like to know if you still integrate it into your instructions of the body scan.
Oh, what an interesting question. And probably a lot of people don't know what you're talking about, but very often when I guide the body scan, I use the breath in a particular instrumental way to help people who may not really have a direct visceral somatic experience of their body, to actually use the breath to feature different regions of the body as we scan through it. So I would encourage people to breathe in as if you could breathe right down into your feet, all the way to your toes, and feel it or imagine it, if you will, image it in your mind, breathing in and then breathing out all the way up from the feet through the top of the head. And we do that in and out through virtually every region of the body as we move from the bottoms of the feet and the toes up through the top of the head. And so it becomes very playful, to just imagine that the body is breathing in this kind of a way, which of course it is, because your toes need, the cells in every region of your body need oxygen all the way down to your toes. They need the blood supply. And often as we age, the blood supply diminishes to the extremities and so forth. So this has not been studied scientifically yet, like, sort of intentionally bringing that kind of awareness on a somatic level and an imagery level down into the feet or any place else. But then when you get to the top of the head, I mean, I invite people to actually imagine that you're like a whale and you can breathe in through the top of your head and breathe out through the top of your head. I know many people who have had headaches, problem with headaches for decades, who once they have this image of a blowhole, like a whale's blowhole, and they can breathe in and out through the top of the head. When they have a headache, they actually can experience that a lot of the discomfort of the headache can kind of leave through the hole that doesn't exist at the top of your head. So there's a way in which this is simply meant to be a skillful means for helping us all to ground ourselves in the body. If it sounds crazy to you, don't do it. But it's there in case it makes sense over time to actually reclaim your own experience of your body. And then even worse than that, we breathe in and out through the bottoms of the feet. We breathe there's no blowhole down there, but we can breathe in as if you're drawing air through the bottoms of your feet. It's coming all the way up through your body and out the top of your head. And then you're breathing in through the top of your head and going. So that requires a lot of words to do the body scan that way. And a lot of people don't like to do that, or they don't feel comfortable with an imaginary blowhole, or they feel that it's too much imagery or something like that. The reason I used it from the very beginning, back in 1979, or even before, when I would guide body scans, is that most of us have a very strange relationship to our body, and it's not that intimate, or it's only intimate in particular moments, and the rest of the time we're clueless about it. And the more we can bring the breath in a very kind of instrumental way into the body and feel it everywhere in the body, including the envelope of the skin, the more the non-instrumental piece of just this that I've been emphasizing often in the meditations or pointing to becomes part of one's experience. So there's the doing of all the verbiage of the body scan, and then there's underneath that no doing whatsoever is just the breath doing itself. So I don't know if that's helpful to you. No one's ever asked me that question before. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it really speaks to you. And I do the body scan a lot. I love it. And I have been reminding you all to meditate in bed before you get out of bed, when you wake up in the morning. And of course, you can do one in-breath from the bottoms of the feet up through the blowhole in the top of the head, or you don't need a blowhole, just like no top to the head. You breathe in, breathe out, right back down, breathing in through the top of the head, out through the feet and the arms and fingers and everything else. So lying down meditations are incredibly powerful, but they have one occupational hazard, which is that, when we lie down, we instinctively fall asleep as instead of falling awake. So that requires exercising a certain kind of muscle to learn how to fall awake. And if that breath imagery and the whale imagery helps, then fantastic. And if it doesn't, just forget about it, as we say in English. Forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Thomas, thank you so much, Pearl. I know Thomas has a question, but before we go on, Jon, some people in the chat were asking where they can do that guided body meditation. It looks like there's one up on YouTube, but is there a suggested place to watch or purchase or access?
Yeah.
A suggestion for those
who cost money, so I'm hesitant to promote it because I'm not into that at all. But there's a group of guided meditations that go with the book Full Catastrophe Living, which is called Series 1. And if you just Google it, you'll find it. And it's relatively inexpensive. And there are downloads as well as CDs. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to get this one. I don't know what's up on YouTube. I didn't put anything up on YouTube. And it may just be, a pirated version of it, which is absolutely fine with me. But I think, I would like, if people are getting Jon Kabat-Zinn, that I can be sure that it really is Jon Kabat-Zinn and not something else. And of course, in these days of the Wild West on the internet, who knows what the hell you're doing.
Right. So Series 1 from Full Catastrophe Living digital version. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I think Thomas,
you had a question, right?
Yes. First of all, also thanks from my side. I'm also very grateful. Perry brought me into that, and I'm very happy that she did so. And we're enjoying your sessions every evening.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. You're very lucky. Sometimes it doesn't work that way in couples, and one person's a meditator, the other person isn't, and then that becomes a problem for people. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, let's not get into dualism about who's the meditator and who's not the meditator. But I'm happy that you don't have that problem in your family.
Yeah, so I try to keep it short.
No worries, take your time.
Yeah, it's about one of our daughters. She is 16, and since 1 year she's suffering from ulcerative colitis. Yeah, and we know it's a chronic disease, and it's will most likely not go away. She's also under medication, but even now under immune suppressive medication, and that they still things are coming back. And I heard that meditation and mindfulness practice has an impact to inflammatory processes within the body. And I just wanted to hear from you if you had experience with the patient with this type of diseases in your classes.
Yes, we would get many referrals from gastroenterology in the hospital for people with a range of different kinds of irritable bowel syndromes and those kinds of inflammatory illnesses. I think there's every reason to suspect that if she were to find a way into the practice that really felt authentic to her, which of course is a big danger when your parents are meditators, that might be like the last thing you want to do, especially if your parents think it would be good for you to do. So that's a huge barrier. But if there's some way in which she could connect with it in a way that's really authentically hers, then first of all, we know it's not going to cause any harm. And the process of befriending a body process that is really causing you distress and harm and, you know, sort of and worry, we just simply don't know yet what the full biological and medical consequences of that are. But there, as far as I know, there's still no real treatments for ulcerative colitis that are 100% effective. And if you're not bringing the mind and body together in this kind of integrated way, really losing out on some potentially profoundly healing experience that might have very real effects on, say, the symptoms themselves, even if the disease itself, you know, might not be changed, but how problematic it is could be really seriously improved by doing something like that. But you'll only know that by actually giving it a real consistent try over a relatively long period of time without being attached to its working, without being attached to a result in terms of the symptoms of the ulcerative colitis. On the other hand, all sorts of other things might be beneficial to her from simply doing that practice over and over again. And I would say the body scan would be the real place to start, because you're moving through the problematic regions, but you've got the whole of it to integrate in. And for a 16-year-old girl, I mean, I can't imagine that wouldn't be profoundly valuable for her. Again, if she can find a way to get into it that's fun and that's not just one more, you know, dumb thing that her parents are trying to get her to do. Does that make any sense to you?
Thank you, Jon. This makes sense. Yeah, it's obviously hard, yeah, to kind of get the kids to do what the parents think is good for them, but
yeah, but you know what? Maybe the best way, and this is a much bigger question, but since you brought it up, and probably most of us are parents, for the people who have discovered that meditation practice is helpful to them, of course, a natural instinct is to want your children to do it and to want to teach it to your children when they're really young. And I'm not sure that that's a really good thing to do for most parents, because we'd be too attached to having them have a good result and wanting to do it. So it's very easy for parents who have this very strong desire for their children to meditate to actually turn their kids off to meditation, maybe for decades at a time, and that would be terrible. So the way I suggest people do it is that don't tell the kids anything about meditation. Let them just see you embodying the practice, not just like that, but by everything that you do in relationship to the way you live your lives and cook dinner and wash the dishes and say good night and say good morning. Be mindful and then let them figure it out for themselves. And my experience is that if you do that, the chances of the kids sooner or later coming around and twisting your arm to tell you what the hell this is really about, are much higher, or they'll learn it from someplace else or on the web or whatever. But it's a tricky business to sort of get the kids to meditate. But as long as they're seeing you meditate and they know that, you know, there's something about you that's not just crazy, then they will sooner or later recognize that there may be profound benefit in it for them, even on a physical level. And the physical level and the healing of the body is, in some sense, the least interesting part of the meditation. It's incredibly important, but it's the heart and the mind and how we are in relationship to reality, including each other in the family and in the world, the family of humanity or life on the planet. That's where things get really, really interesting. And I think we're all sensing that just by being here together, all of us, and many of you with children from time to time on the screen. And I really love that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Did that answer your question sufficiently?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And tell her that I send my best and wish her all the best. If that's a wise thing to do, and if it's not a wise thing to do, don't tell her anything about it.
We will tell her, definitely.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of butt in here, but I've had the great fortune to do a retreat with Jon and his son, Will, who has ended up being really wonderful mindfulness teacher in his own right. And I'm sure that wasn't planned from the early days, but it's really amazing to see Jon show up in your family in ways that maybe you didn't expect.
Thanks, Soren. Yeah.
It's really lovely. It's been super, super sweet to see. So I think we have time for one more. It's 11.
Yeah, we do.
5 minutes before the hour. And so I'm seeing Esther, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, but I believe you're unmuted and you're live. And also just to know that this is also being live streamed on YouTube. So anything you say here will also be seen kind of in this larger public domain. So welcome.
Hi. Wow. It's funny, my mom's the one who got me into this, so just talking
Okay,
about
so
that.
there's a wonderful segue from the last conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, really shocked.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Silicon Valley. I'm an Australian living here. My mum and dad are in Australia, so they'll watch this on YouTube later, which I think will surprise them. I'm really surprised.
Take your time.
I guess I got laid off about 5 weeks ago, and I'm on a visa, so my countdown is starting. And I found spending time with all of you to be really helpful and keeping me going through this time. But I found that I was really finding peace in the moment, but I was potentially burying my head in the sand, and not being able to face problems such as my lease, my visa, moving countries. And I just wanted to ask you how to be in the moment, but still deal with things that are approaching or coming that I need to deal with that might not necessarily be in this room right now, but are very real and very much now.
Oh, thank you for that question. It's absolutely beautiful and absolutely critical, because it would be a huge misunderstanding of meditation to think that it was merely a method of quiescence, of ignoring everything that's going on in your life. And you're walking around a lot. We're getting a whole tour of your Domicile. Are you still with us? It looks like you've frozen up.
How you doing, Esther?
Were you looking for a better signal? Because we've lost you now. You were fine where you were. Soren, are we on live? And
we're doing great, Jon. But yeah, Esther, let's see. How you doing, Esther?
Are you
Am I
back?
back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We lost
Am I
you.
back?
We lost
Okay.
you.
I had 7% battery.
Okay.
Oh, so you had to plug it in. You had to get close to. Okay. So anyway, to make a very long story short, if you're ignoring the actualities of your life to go into some kind of meditative la-la land, that's a form of violence to yourself. That's not what this practice is about. So your visa circumstances, the fact that you were laid off and that starts a particular kind of clock, which I don't understand the details of, but I've read about it enough to understand that it means you have to leave the country unless you find some other kind of employment. Yeah, this is the curriculum. That's what I've been suggesting from day one, that the real curriculum is life itself, and not ignoring the actual landscape that you're living in and the pain and the stress of it, but taking it on in a way that doesn't destroy you or doesn't, sort of compound the pain and the stress because you're taking it all personally when actually none of it is personal. It's just we're all caught up in something where the virus doesn't care whether you're Australian, American, Russian, or, Turkish. And in the same way, the United States of America doesn't care about you at all. It's just like you're just some kind of number in some computer or whatever, and then clocks start and stop. But our whole life is caught up in that kind of thing. And the question is, how can you regulate yourself so that you take care of real problems when they need to be addressed, but you don't lose your mind out of anxiety or fear in the process? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I find that what I've always done is I've thought more about how my actions affect other people rather than how my actions affect myself. And I've found that over the last 6 years of living here, I sort of created these narratives of how what I did affected other people, and then I played out those stories.
Mm.
And now I'm trying
to. That's great that you realize that.
Well,
because it doesn't sound like that was a very healthy kind of pattern to fall into.
No, and I think when I was trying to keep people close, I pushed them away by not being my authentic self.
Well, do you think that or do you know that? Because you said, I think.
I know that.
Okay, stop right there. That's the power of mindfulness. That kind of knowing is not merely cognitive. But we don't often listen to that in ourselves. And then we get lost in all the problem solving. And then, so this is kind of like another yoga practice, is you work with the stretching, you work with the envelope of like the circumstances that you're in, wanted or unwanted, pleasant or unpleasant, and you ground yourself as best you can without idealizing the practice in any way, shape, or form, but you ground yourself in awareness itself, embodied, and how am I holding this? And then you'll get instant feedback from the world, from your body, from your breath, from the, so immigration. I mean, you'll get instant feedback from all sorts of places, wanted and not wanted. But your intelligence is like infinitely capable of holding this all in a way that will ultimately resolve itself one way or another. And that's why I keep stressing the not knowing.
Yeah.
and you have a place to go home to. You have parents who are still alive. I mean, there's all sorts of things if you started cataloging it all that's in your favor, and that maybe you're, way more privileged than other people who are like, I mean, sitting in cars waiting, for hours just to try to get food for their kids. So it's all relative. And the real question is, how can you use it as practice? And I can't tell you that, but you can tell you that because you're not just the student, you're also the teacher. You're your own teacher. Life is the teacher, the meditation practice is the teacher, but the curriculum is the whole show, and you're an important part of it. So that's why I keep stressing there's no one right way to practice. If you get caught up in your narrative too much, there are an infinite number of wrong ways to practice, and then go for years. Whatever happens to you, 10 years, 20 years from now, you don't want to be meditating in a way that's self-centered, because that's the most toxic delusion of all. But it's a very, very robust delusion, and we all suffer from it. So that's also where you could use this unwanted opportunity to liberate yourself now and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I've been finding is every, I don't know, several days, I'll think like, oh, I got it. And then it's just, then I catch myself getting in the narrative of self, and, it just keeps
But
flipping.
that's part of life, so in and out, and it's like waves on the ocean. You can't stop it from waving. Like, just stay like this. I like today, no waves. It'll do whatever it does. And the same with the mind, and the same with the world. And it could care less about us in a certain way. But that's where the wisdom comes in, and that's where self-compassion comes in, and that's where kindness towards yourself comes in. And then that's all, it's all practice. I don't know if that helps or not, but
yeah, it definitely does. And I think every conversation you've had with the thousands of people, that's what I wait for every day, is that 30 minutes at the end where I get to hear people talk about their lives and converse. I just learned so much from everyone here. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you. It's very beautiful. And good luck to you. And good luck to all of us, and we all need it big time. And in a sense, we're not just depending on good luck, though. That's part of the practice too, is we're actually tilting things in the direction of well-being, of sanity, of truth. It's becoming a kind of dangerous word to use. But of what we know to be true, not because of here, but because of, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but here. So thank you. And
thank you so much, Esther. And in the comments or the chat, you can see there's a lot of people who definitely align with you, and you're not alone in the experience for sure. And I think one of the beauties of our time together is this sense of a shared humanity, whether we're dealing with this challenge or that challenge, there's a shared experience that we're having. So moving further, Jon, are you ready for us to move into the breakouts? Anything you need to say before we kind of make that action happen? Jon Kabat-Zinn?
No.
We're good to go?
We're all good, yeah.
Okay, so my mom, who's 8, who's in here, tells me I don't always give the best instructions for how to go into the breakout. So I'm gonna do best. So Mom, if you're listening, in a moment, she's 80 and she's wonderful, but she's tech not as sophisticated. So for all of us out there, whether we're 10 or 80 or 90, in a few minutes, we're going to close this place. And if your first name begins with A through M, you're going to put this into your browser, just like you're going to google.com or yahoo.com or youtube.com or whatever. Wisdom 2 Conference /group 1. And if your name is N through Z, you're going to put in your browser Wisdom 2 Conference /group 2. And what you'll see happen when you do that and you click enter is a whole new Zoom session will open up for you.
Yeah. And don't forget the www. That may be important.
Yeah. And it'll just look like this. It'll just be a room just like this. And John Bashu's with me, or I will then put you into these breakout rooms of 7 to 8 people. So in about 15 seconds, we're going to say goodbye here. We'll have a minute for just goodbyes like we love. And if you're on YouTube and you're doing this, or you're here, just enter this URL. If you mess up and you end up going through the N through Z or the A, it's not a big deal. We're just trying to break up the groups in size so that we don't have the capacity issue we've had in the past. So please copy this down, write it down, take a picture with your phone, a snapshot on your screen, whatever it is. So in about 10 seconds, I'm going to move us over to say goodbye. But again, in 1 or 2 moments when we end this, please put that in your browser and we will see you on the other side. And I hope that is understandable, Mom. If you have any questions, you can text me. And I hope it's understandable to everybody else.
And those of you who don't have time to join us in these breakout sessions, or at least today, we'll see you tomorrow. And there's no need for you to join. It's only if you can and you want to. So thanks for today. Thanks for being here with us.
So if you want to say, we'll have about 60 seconds to say goodbye here. Then thank you so much.
Here.
Gracias. Thank you.
Dankeschön.
Mary Beth. Everybody tomorrow.
What was that?
Bye. Eddie. Oh, that was